and I would, I think freemium is one method of monetization within what I would call kind of a PLG, product-led growth, go-to-market motion, which you could also say is a no-touch go-to-market motion, like self-service. Like I can discover and adopt and onboard and use and succeed with a product with no help from another human being. That's a no-touch PLG. Does it start with a free trial? Maybe. Okay, great. That's one monetization model. Is it just free forever? Okay, great. That'd be like freemium, like what you just said. Is it a reverse trial where I start with the full version of the product and then I revert to the free version of the product? Another monetization model. But all of those are self-service. All those are no-touch. I'd put them all in that bucket.
Well, welcome to the weekly ThriveStack webinar series. We've been talking to wonderful people like Dave, who's on the call today, really picking up their brains, figuring out how growth is happening today. This week, we're going to talk about freemium. Freemium, all about product-led growth, especially in the age of AI. We have our guest, Dave Boyce. Most of you who might be listening live or might be joining in later on our podcast might know him, in much different ways. I've known him for the last maybe a year and a half now. We've done 2 podcasts. We've done some amazing collabs together. He's not just written a book on freemium. Of course, he's the best-known author for that. He's got a PLG MBA. He sold companies to Oracle, Amazon, Aura, and he and I, we met almost a year and a half back. We started talking about PLG, where he really was coming in at that time from the sales-led world, and we've had some interesting conversations since then. Happy to see that now he's a fully PLG convert, an AI-led convert. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Dave, welcome to the webinar.
I love it. Thank you so much, Guru. Really, I always love spending time with you. This is virtual, but it works. It works too.
Super. So Dave, I did a poll to some of the people, especially on LinkedIn, and I put it on Twitter as well, on what people think about freemium. And I'm going to walk you through the poll results, and we'll start off from the very top.
Hang on,
here are some results.
Let me buckle my chin strap.
So I got about 7 of them who are pro freemium, and we'll touch upon what is freemium, why freemium, and all of that. We'll come back to it a little later. And we have 10 or 12 of them which are anti-freemium. Let me start with the anti-freemium first. That sometimes it's well worthy. So we have Rob Whaling. He said, "I've watched too many SaaS companies burn their cash trying to imitate freemium models of unicorn. It really works in early stage." He advises never to go there. Josh Pickford is the Baremetrics founder. He said, "Freemium almost killed us. Non-paying users were our worst customers, draining support and engineering without giving anything back. Almost none of them converted." We had Equals, Bobby Pinero, CEO of Equals. They had a freemium plan, then they went to a sales-led plan, and then the growth started doing, really they're a venture scale company now, double, triple after, they came in and they stopped the freemium. And he says introducing a freemium plan was one of the riskiest decisions we have ever made. And ultimately it cost us more than $500,000 in the beginning. While it still initially drove sign up, it actually stalled growth. We never actually converted any of the users. Retaining them was also very difficult. There was nothing for them to move up to. Freemium isn't for every company. It's definitely not for us. That's the worldview on the anti-freemium. Here's a few on the pro freemium. So I'm going to go scroll through this. Drew Houston from Dropbox, hey, our freemium plan was staple for our business value proposition. For the first 1.5 to 2 years time, we had no idea, we had no sales team, and then people would start downloading Dropbox, and that's how we would acquire and grow users. Almost none of them paid in the beginning. It took us 2.5 years for us to get our first paid customer through Dropbox. Then I have David Apple, I'm not sure how I say that, from Sage Intact. He mentions it's a foot in the door. Many wouldn't try SaaS tools without a free start. That's what we realized, even though we were in the financial services business. And this is at least a good start for us to have the signups come in. I'll pause here. I have like loads and loads of these pros and cons crafted out. Let me start from the very top. Maybe if you could, and you always are very eloquent on defining these terms, what is freemium? Maybe if you could first set the stage, and we'll go into the why of the freemiums, when to use it, and so on and so forth.
I love it. First of all, just those are my people. Like you can just tell from what they're writing, like they're living it, they're in it, they're trying, you guys are trying to make things happen. Like you're pivoting, you're making changes, you're learning. Like if we had a dinner party and those were the people around the table, I think Guru, you and I would feel right at home.
We would be.
And none of those lessons are invalid. None of those experiences are invalid. They're just like we're just trying to figure it out. So kind of hearts out, I want to say hearts out. That doesn't seem like right, but anyway, love to you. Freemium, look, freemium. There's this really cool word. I have a friend who's a professor, a humanities professor, and I knew there was a word for when you take two words and smoosh them together. I just couldn't remember what it was. She was around our dinner table last night or Sunday night. I'm like, what is that word? She reminded me, a portmanteau of the word free and premium. So it really is just a monetization model, Guru. So like, I totally get it. Like, can you give something away for free? Maybe, maybe not. Can you give it away for free for a limited amount of time and then charge? Maybe, maybe not. But it's just one of many monetization models. And I use it as a title for the book to get people's attention. It's what I mean, honestly, when I first was contemplating writing this book, I brought the idea to the boardroom. I was on the board of Forrester for 8 years, and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking I'm stepping aside from operating to write a book on PLG." And the general response was, "Okay, that's great. What's your book on PLG?" "Okay, that's cool. What does that stand for?" "Product-led growth." "All right. What's it?" Like, seriously. And this is Forrester. Like, Forrester's like right
Yeah.
at the kind of epicenter. Of course, these are board members of Forrester, which means they built their careers, a generation ago. But but uh, then one of them said, one of the of my generation members of the board said, the way I always introduce it to people is freemium. They immediately know what freemium means, and then from there I can bridge into the broader world of self-service and product-led growth. And I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea. And then the title was available. So I 100% agree that it's just one of many models. It fits into a bigger framework, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I think maybe could you share a little about your own background? I know you came from an enterprise SaaS world, and then in I think 2021 or 2022, I think last time you mentioned to me that you first encountered the many conversations with many sales leaders, and they were confounded about the whole PLG market. I think that's the time when a lot of the PLG conversations were on and OpenView, was Kyle Poyer and OpenView, Elena Verna, and many of the stalwarts in that particular industry were talking really eloquent about PLG market. And you had a change of mind or a change of heart where you really came from a sales background. For most listeners, you may or may not realize, Dave Boyce is a very changed man now. But when I met him for the first time, he was all about SPICE framework and sales methodologies and MEDIC, and slowly started talking about, hey, there's a world of PLG out there which is contrasting all of that. So maybe, Dave, could you interest our audience on how did you get acquainted with how you got acquainted with the world of PLG, and since then you've changed so much.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back before that, that 2021 timeframe. At that time, you kind of couldn't open your inbox without a flood of PLG this, PLG that. Like you said, OpenView and Bessemer, and kind of everybody was all about PLG. Got it. Okay, cool. But it really started, way, way before that, kind of 2002 is when Atlassian started. And then the first time that I became aware of it, we actually left Oracle. And you're right, we sold a company to Oracle. The average ACV for the company that we sold to Oracle was $1.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Average.
Wow.
Average. So that means there's some smaller, some bigger, right? That's ARR, 0.2 ARR. So then I stayed at Oracle for 4.5 years. And we had young kids, and there's always reasons why you do what you do. And then I left, and I left, and I joined a company that had, and this is had an average. You're not going to like this. Had an average of well, actually, it's an average of a little more, like $1,200, $12,000, but a median of $1,200, median of $1,200. So I'm the CEO now, and I've got this company, and we've got and we've built kind of a self-service kind of capability. But as people walk in the front door, the median monetization is $1,200. I can't afford salespeople on that. I can't afford. So I'm learning. I moved the company from Boston to Silicon Valley. I'm learning from kind of Zendesk and Twilio and Dropbox, even Basecamp, like a lot of these early companies that were doing self-service models. I didn't really study Shopify, but they were around at the time. And I figured out how to kind of automate and orchestrate a unit economic beneficial PLG motion. So I had two motions, and part of this I learned is like it's very hard to run two motions when you're too small, like an enterprise motion and a PLG motion. But I was doing my best, and the more I learned, and I made a lot of mistakes, just like I made a lot of pivots, just like everybody who's responded to your poll. We ended up selling that company. Then I joined a company that also was hybrid self-service. That was inside sales, hybrid self-service and enterprise. And that's what really drove it home for me, Guru. I was like, I think we're leaning into the past here. I think the enterprise piece of this, the sales driven piece of this, as much as it feels good when you close a big deal, there's a long period of kind of trying to digest what you just sold. And the harder you sell, the harder the digestion period is. Whereas when people just walk in the front door and they self-select in, that's like an almost already curated kind of pure version of customer that is deciding based on her existing experience. I just became convinced that the future was going to go this way. So indeed, once we sold inside sales, I did a hard pivot back to PLG, thinking that that's the future.
Yeah, I mean, congrats. I mean, that's amazing learning. Really jet speed at that time. So I'm going to go maybe structure our conversation into three buckets, right? The first bucket is around some of the concerns. So maybe let's establish the word freemium. Would I be right to say that freemium is essentially a GTM strategy? It's part and parcel of PLG as the rails, and you build something which is maybe a free version of your product, give them the taste of the things. It has some limits to it. And if they start using a little more, they automatically get into the premium payment plans, if you will. So there's a motion there wherein you give something for free. You have that empathetic audience that you bring in, you nurture them saying that, hey, this is how you can use and solve your particular problem. Solve that problem first, and then make the payment. So I think that's the general definition. Am I right at kind of pointing that out exactly? Is that how it is, or is that something more than that?
No, that's exactly how it is. And I would I think freemium is one method of monetization within what I would call kind of a PLG, product-led growth, go-to-market motion. But you could also say is a no-touch go-to-market motion, like self-service. Like I can discover and adopt and onboard and use and succeed with the product with no help from another human being. That's a no-touch PLG. Does it start with the free trial? Maybe. Okay, great. That's one monetization model. Is it just free forever? Okay, great. That'd be like freemium, like what you just said. Is it a reverse trial where I start with the full version of the product and then I revert to the free version of the product? Another monetization model. But all of those are self-service. All those are no touch. I'd put them all in that in that bucket.
Got it. So I think now that we have established that particular notion, what is freemium, maybe even touched a little bit about trials, reverse trials, and some experimentations around it. Maybe let's start with the journey. Let's say an early stage startup who's got a concept. How do they go about doing this? I'm not talking about the technology aspects of it. There's an authentication, there's a payment layer. How do they make their audience aware that they exist and they're able to solve this particular problem, and they're able to showcase the solution to the world? Could you maybe walk us through on what does it take to build awareness for a product like from an early stage startup? And maybe if you could intersperse, how long does it take? And I talk to a lot of early stage startups, and Dave, that I hear complaints like, hey, it's taken more than 6 months and we've had no signups, and it has taken 9 months and we've just had one sign up a week. And even though they might have intuition towards it, they just drop the ball. It's not working out well enough. So maybe in your words, could you share the journey of how to get to freemium?
Yeah, I work I work closely with groups of entrepreneurs, and I think there's one right answer to your question. First of all, I'm going to have to decide kind of how I'm going to monetize this, whether I'm building a sales led or a product led. But in the beginning, there's no decision to be made. Underselling. That's the answer. I don't care if it's $1,200, $12,000, $120,000, $12. I don't care. It's founder selling always, every single time. You go to your mom, you go to your roommate, you go to your best friend, you get them to introduce you to their roommates, you go to your cousins, you go to your neighbors, anyone who will listen. You just need people in the product. You need feedback. And it's less about the amount of money you're getting at that point and more about just, you got to beat on this thing. And you got to, and I just did a series of reviews with a brand new product inventor, I think 2 weeks ago, where I taught him how to do what I call kind of the one-way mirror kind of test, where I went through his product and I narrated everything that was going through my head. Okay, I think the next thing I would do is, and I had him watch me but stay silent and just take notes, right? Like I got stuck on some things and I was like, that didn't work. That didn't work. Gosh, I don't know what to do at this point. And then he can't pull me out of the rut, right? So that in the very beginning, the game is not sit around and wait for people to find your product and then one per week. No, the game is not to go buy ads and kind of no. The first thing you do is just, you got to get people in there, like using it and testing it. And as many as possible. And I know most of us don't have hundreds of friends that we can bring in every week. We're going to run out very quickly, but we got to go hustle. And then, and we got to convince ourselves, and you can do this on a unit economic, non-profitable basis at some point, Guru. But the first one I want to do is just bring in friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, whatever. Then I can go buy a few customers, and then I can just start tracking, like, what percentage of the customers that come into my product on their own with no help from me are finding their way to success. Now, at some point I can decide, gosh, that's never going to work. I got to go down a sales-led route. I got to charge more money. I got to have assistance right from the get-go. That's a choice. Good. Commit to it. Go build it. Or I just keep tuning it. And I think I am going to get to a point where they're going to find first impact on their own with no assistance. And only after I've convinced myself, I'm going to make this number up, but this is what I have in the book as a raw number, that 70% of brand new customers with no assistance from me can reach first impact within a specified period of time, which approximates their attention span. It's my best guess at their attention span. 70% of new users become successful before they lose attention. Now I can go out and start optimizing the acquisition motion. First, I got to optimize the activation motion.
So got it. So, and I think these are some slightly different stats than what we are seeing as well. Maybe case in point for our listeners, we run ThriveStack, which is a growth intelligence, essentially a full journey growth intelligence, and we track all the way from the first touch to the website. Someone comes to your website because of a campaign. We track that visitor ID with the fingerprint ID, and we essentially track their journey into your marketing website, into the product, which sit inside the product, how they engage your product, when they activate it, when they monetize it, what's the retention rate looks like, and we do all the whole shebang around it. What we have seen there is the metrics that you mentioned, about 70% of them self-activate. We have never seen this. Never seen this. We've seen only for B2C customers, if they're able to activate the first day, if you do a time distribution, within the first 3 hours or 6 hours, if they're able to activate it, only then the activation rate is, anywhere speaking above 50 to 60%. Beyond that, in a B2C SaaS company, we are seeing, and we have deployed it, our product to many, many customers, and we've seen 15% to 35% of the activation rate. Self-activation rate.
Right.
If you do a customer success assist or some kind of a sales assist, that number can jump, but then the CAC increases at that time. So what you're mentioning, I would love that to happen. I mean, which means that the activation, the onboarding is really, really done well.
Well, look, pick your number, and 70, I'm sure, is too high. So pick a number. Like if you launch at 15 and you don't think you can make you don't think there are enough customers out there in the world to
Mm-hmm.
make a 15% activation rate, eventually be profitable given what you're going to have to pay to go acquire eyeballs, on a blended basis. And then you say, gosh, I got to get to at least 35. Great. There's your number, 35.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
and iterate to that first before you go start spending money on
Yeah.
activation.
I think that makes sense. But I think what you're debunking a myth that a PLG does not require marketing. It requires some kind of an awareness campaign. In your case, you first got the word of mouth with your friends, family, mother, mother-in-law, whoever it is, right? And then you got more customers, through some kind of word of mouth or some kind of a campaign, if you will. So is this true that PLG requires more marketing to get more visitors in, or does it require less marketing to get more visitors in?
Well, you know how we all watch a movie and we see Brad Pitt and we think, man, I could do that. You're keying off of like the most successful, like, human. Like, we can't all be Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to tell you is like, is the holy grail kind of best case scenario. But the best case scenario, that what we really want is the more customers we get, the easier it is to get the next customer. And the way to make that happen is through growth loops, which means I'm going to activate my current customer base to go find more customers, and I can build mechanics in for that. That would be amazing. And if I could get enough of that to work, we used to talk about viral spreading.
Yeah.
Technical definition of viral is that
Yeah.
for every one new customer I get, that customer will recruit more than one
More
additional
than one.
customer
Yeah.
before they become a non-customer. So
Yeah.
that it's like literally refers to like, the
The
spread of
coefficient.
disease.
Yeah.
It's a viral code. I don't need that. I just need them to do some work for me so that I
Yeah.
can do less marketing. And it's a balance. But in the class that I teach, we look at blended cost of acquisition, and we are very willing, on a blended basis to overpay for some customers if we can also underpay for other customers, and on a blended basis, still be okay on a CAC to LTV or CAC payback basis.
Yeah.
So short answer, yeah, we got to do marketing. We have to do marketing, but let's leverage that marketing up. Let's make sure that we're not just throwing money at it until, it magically becomes profitable. We're going to optimize it. We're going to use social channels. We're going to use paid channels. We're going to use organic channels. We're going to use content marketing. We're going to use growth loops. We're going to use all of it. And we're going to try on a blended basis to solve the math equation.
And we have a question online coming in, and they're saying, when is it too early to do freemium? Do we wait for product market fit to start the freemium, or should we start from very early days?
So you're going to make a great question. Thank you, whoever that is. I mean, look, yes, we need product market fit. Before I throw any money at any money at scaling, I need product market fit. And then when I start throwing money at scaling, I'm going for go to market fit. So, but the first thing I got to solve is product market fit. And you will know whether and that metric that we just talked about, that first impact success rate, Guru, whether it's 15%, 30%, 50%, whatever it is. I said 70. I think that's probably too optimistic. Whatever that is, that's how I'm going to know if I have product market fit, or that's the earliest indicator that I have product market fit. The next indicator would be sustained usage. The next indicator would be, payment, and maybe even recurring payment. But I can't wait a year to know if I have product market fit. So I'm looking for really early indicators, which would be like this first indicator, first impact success rate. And it doesn't matter. In my opinion, it doesn't matter whether that person is paid or free. Really, they're trading their attention and their clicks for something that I may or may not deliver, which is impact. And if at some point I'm not delivering impact, they're going to pull their investment. Even if it's not money, if it's just their attention, it's still a signal to me.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just running that experiment until I decide that, ooh, I got product market fit. Like, she comes back again. She comes back again. Amazing. Whether she's paying or not is tomorrow's problem. Today's problem is keeping her attention, keeping her in the saddle.
Well, that's wonderfully put. I think what you're saying is that not necessarily that you need to be 500,000 or 1 million in revenue, as long as you have customers repeatedly coming in, signing into your product, starting to use it and accomplishing their task, and then they go away and then they come back again and again and again. That's your definition of that. Hey, there's a market for a product like this, and it in generally is a fit. You may not have a pricing, you may not have a scale fit, you may not have the right ICP fit, but at least you know that the solution that you're offering to your customers is required.
Indeed. And I think some of your listeners will start, having their battle scars twitch when I say this. But what's the alternative to that? I've done this. I'm guilty of this. I've worked with Founders Guild. you go buy traffic, you go buy customers, you go buy growth. And then you convince yourself and your next investor that you have a growth curve that looks like this. Yeah, but you bought it. Like they're not tenants at will. You basically paid them. You surrounded them. You coerced them. You twisted their arm. You came and convinced them not to quit. You did everything you could. But by the way, because you're scrappy, right? Because we're entrepreneurs and we're trying to make it work. But that signal is a false positive. You use it to go raise money on a false positive high valuation. Then you have to go chase that with the next one. That's a really horrible spot to be. So if I can do what you just said and just iterate for a while until I get kind of water flowing downhill, those are not false positive signals. Those are like genuine signals that tell me it is time to start scaling.
And by the way, for the listeners, Dave and I, we had done a webinar almost about a year back, if I remember correctly, with one of the investors, and they have a services offering which does buy traffic, not just paid ads, but constant outbound, constant content strategy to really embrace them, bring them in, into and coercing them to essentially do some kind of a sign up campaign. FYI, sometimes these services are about somewhere between $10,000 a month to $100,000 a month. So it's amazing how much people pay to buy that traffic. Let me jump to the next question. I know, Dave, you mentioned about there's an awareness campaign, that needs to happen, be it word of mouth, baseline virality. Then somehow the end user is being coerced to sign up because he or she thinks that they might be able to go solve a particular problem using your product. And then you mentioned about activation. I'm assuming what you mean by that is guiding that particular user to the goal in a series of steps, right? And that could be, step 1, fill your profile. Step 2, solve this particular problem. Step 3, here's an MIT paper, answer 26 questions on that one. No matter what that might be, you're guiding the user through an activation journey. And you mentioned that once you feel that they have successfully activated and they're coming back, you're generally getting the signal of a product market fit. But let me ask two slightly different questions on this one. And the market is split, on this. When do you monetize? Do you monetize after they have activated generally? And there are different models to that. And I would love to hear your opinions on that one. After they have activated and say, hey, you know what, you've activated, free trial starts now. I've seen that almost at 80% of the SaaS companies that we work with, the moment they activate, free trial banner comes up. That's one method. The second method is you are already on a free trial or a reverse trial, and then you let the freemium plan exhaust, and that can exhaust in a month, in a time period, or in a quota. There could be a limit towards it. And once it exhausts, then you're offering, saying that, hey, now you've exhausted, you've crossed the limits, here's your trial for the paid plan. Which one do you think has a higher propensity to monetize? Have you seen any trends out there which are any of these or something completely different?
We should do some studies together, Guru, because you've got volume at this point, and so you've got statistics and percentages. So you probably have a unique view of the audience. I could tell you, and I'll turn it back to you on percentages, but the exit criterion for the activation stage is something that I would call first impact, and that's something that we get to define. Like, what's the first time that a customer gets impact out of the solution? It's when the first time she publishes a report, or the first time that she prints a design, or the first time that she's able to issue a payroll, or maybe it's even earlier than that. Some insight she gets into her network, or whatever that first time is that she gets impact. I want to code that. I want to instrument it. I want to measure it. And then when I think about the duration period for a free trial, expiration needs to be on the other side of achieving first impact. Like, I need to give myself a fighting chance to have her experience first impact before I start asking her for money. Like, when I come asking for money, I would like it to feel like, oh, wow, I knew this day was going to come, but they sure did deliver a lot of value to me in the meantime. So yeah, of course I'm happy to pay. We don't want it to feel like, what? I'm not even done finishing my stupid setup. Like, don't ask me for money yet. Like, I'm busy. Like, I'm trying to work on my thing. And it's always a guessing game. I'm like, when do you start it? When do you expire it? But and you can even game it a little bit, but the principle is that I want to come asking for money after I've achieved first impact. In some cases, like a true freemium product, like where there's a free forever version, it's trigger based. It's not time based. Yeah. It's based on, when they get to a certain storage amount or a certain volume amount. Now, the one really tricky thing about freemium, which I would agree, I didn't hear it in your comments, but I'm sure we're all thinking it is, when I have a non-zero marginal cost of delivery product, it costs me money to have you as a customer. I can't keep you forever as a free customer. And when we're burning AI tokens to deliver our service, that is true, right? So if I'm using AI in the background and you're a free customer for 1 week, cool, that costs me $20. You're a customer for 2 weeks, oh, that costs me 40, 80, 60, 80. Like, I can't keep you forever. I got to ask you for money at some point. So that may encourage a shorter trial, but in all cases, I want to try to get you to first impact before I come asking for money.
That's amazing. So here's some of our experiences. I mean, we use a lot of Bolt, Cursor, Windsurf, Lovable. Most of them are free, and they give you a quota, a monthly quota, and you can exhaust that quota in a day's time or in a week's time. Doesn't matter. They'll give you a monthly quota, and once you exhaust that, you just have to wait, or you pay for upgrading, but you wait, and then the quota resets the next month, right? So that's how, many of these guys are like, hey, we have limits, the AI tokens are too expensive. We'll give you enough for you to constantly engage with us, but not enough for you to actually do anything meaningful there.
Yeah, I've paid for a lot of those services. I don't want to wait. Click.
Yeah, click. Yeah, that's how it goes. I mean, hey, this is just $30, right? And you get like 26 million tokens.
But the reason in that moment I don't want to wait is because I've been experiencing value. Like, I'm actually getting somewhere. I'm doing something cool, lovable. Thank you. Now I got to pay more or wait. Oh yeah, I'm definitely paying more because I'm on a roll. Yeah.
So a subsequent question to that is pay by use. If people like, what they've been, doing, so they will pay per use. I like it. For example, with Lovable, say I want to build an app, it might cost me $30 to go use Lovable for like 5-6 days. And after that, I don't want to cancel it. I don't want to necessarily pay the next month. So you're paying for that week until you're doing the project. And after that, you're gone. 3 weeks later, you can come back again and you pay another $30. That's one model, and where, you're bringing in, but that's not an enterprise model or even a subscription model. Now, my question to you, Dave, is there's so many monetization models on this freemium. Is there a playbook around when to monetize, when to ask for an upgrade, when to get your customer success team to shake you up and give you a call and say, hey, you've tried my product, 6 days back, do you want to try it again? I mean, any thoughts on after that you have activated them, after that you have seen an engagement, what's a good enough time? You mentioned about there's a limit. You give something for free and then you go past that particular limit. That's one model. But what else have you seen out there?
Yeah, well, I'll give you the discouraging answer and then a more encouraging answer. When some of us, Guru, got to a certain age, I think we thought that we would be teaching our teams how to do it like we did. Like, hey, I'm 57, just speaking for myself. Hey, I became successful. Here's how I did it. I'm going to teach you how to do it. Now you're going to run those same plays that I used to play. And now we land in 2025 and doesn't work anymore. Like, the plays we used to run are not the plays that are succeeding today. Like, so we actually have to go, like, we can't crack open our old playbooks. We got to go, we got to be curious and start exploring and figuring out what does work. And now with kind of token consumption being a major part of the delivery of today's apps, that adds a variable cost component that we didn't have to deal with in the subscription world, right? So it's new, figuring it out. In the plain vanilla use case, we would look for signal, and we'd probably get that signal out of a platform like ThriveStack. We'd look for signal of recurring impact, and we might, depending on kind of what our, if we have a land and expand motion, that signal might be around individual use going to pro, like from free to pro, but probably not. Like, if we're going to deploy a salesperson, because a salesperson is expensive, maybe that would trigger like a digital upgrade invitation. But a human upgrade invitation might be more like, hey, when do you get to a point where you need Teams features or enterprise features? And I'm just going to watch kind of their usage pattern, and then I'm going to, this is in a subscription world, right? So now I'm going to go from the $19 version to the $59 version or whatever. I've talked to a lot of, I was just with the CEO last night, who's in he has an access plus consumption kind of pricing model.
That's interesting.
He had baseline access, and I'm like, Dave, oh, now I just gave his name away. Dave, what about packaging in a certain amount of consumption into the access? Because access does you no good without consumption. And he's like,
Mhm.
no, no, we do that. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking at on the price sheet. He's like, no, no, we do that. That's not in the mechanics of what I have coded in my system on the back end, but that is indeed the way that it shows up to the customer. You get essentially one agent with X amount of capacity, like you said, for, Lovable. It comes with a certain amount of tokens, whatever you said, 26 million tokens for 30
Yeah.
bucks or whatever. And then, but I'm going to package that in so that a reasonable human trying to accomplish a reasonable job to be done could actually get that job to be done without us coming in and saying, guess what? I know you're not done yet, but now you owe me more money. Like, that's an awkward intervention. And all of that, I think we're figuring out. And there's a lot more to figure out too. Like if you indeed are going to have a sales assist, does, credit work? How does territory management work? What is an
Yeah.
upsell versus a land? These are things like that MongoDB and others have really been wrestling with at
Yeah.
scale, and that
Yeah.
we're gonna have to figure out.
Yeah. I think the AI-led GTA model, with all the token consumption, I think we should circle back. You, me, and Elena, we should have a conversation now that she's at Lovable. She'll have some amazing insights.
Yeah.
I want to jump into, slightly, different conversations about now that you have started monetizing, there are pains to this. So maybe, if you could share some thoughts on, if premium was so good on paper, it looks amazing. It's attracting lots and lots of users. If your activation is beautiful, you'll activate much faster. If you don't have enough friction for your paywalls, you'll monetize faster. All that is, hunky dory. It's all good. Why is most SaaS companies not doing freemium then? And for that matter, not even have any kind of a PLG motion, not a free trial, not freemium, not reverse trial. Why do established companies are not even thinking about this? It's been some years now. It's been almost like 4 or 5 years since this concept is democratically available to most of them. Even then, the adoption rate of a GTA motion like this is so poor. Is it
Yeah.
only for the newbies? Is it only for the AI-led companies, DevOps companies, developer companies, coding, vibe marketing companies? Or is it really for everyone?
It's a great question. I do think there's an old dog, new tricks kind of thing here. But I don't know, that's an excuse. Like you're a curious guy, you can learn new tricks. I'm a curious guy, I can learn new tricks, and I'm an old dog. So, in theory, we should be able to learn this. But if I built if I built my company starting in, pick a year, 2005, and now it's, 20 years later, and I've raised 3 rounds of funding, and I'm at a certain scale, and then somebody says, hey, let's add PLG into the mix. That's hard to do. It takes time. You already mentioned in the opening remarks, it might take me 18 months, 2 years, even 3 years to kind of get a full kind of product-led acquisition motion going. And then when I do, I'm getting $1,200 customers or even $12,000 customers. Forget about that. I don't roll out of bed for $12,000.
Yeah.
Like I'm 10 years into my journey, and I'm selling like $120,000 customers, every single day. So I don't roll out of bed for 12,000. It's just very, very hard. So what I've ended up, I actually work with a lot of those companies, Guru. By the way, 40 public companies use PLG in
Yeah.
their verified, and 72% of the Cloud 100, the kind of Bessemer Forbes Cloud 100, use PLG. So it's not, but if you put everybody in the denominator,
Yeah.
like all software companies on the planet, and you say what percentage uses PLG, it's a small percentage. 100% of the fastest ever growers since 2003
They all use PLG.
are PLG. Before 2003, it was VMware and Salesforce, fastest ever growing. Since 2003, it's Atlassian and Slack and OpenAI, and these are all the fastest growing ever, and they're all PLG. Okay, so what I say now, like, don't try to do everything all at once. Like, don't try to don't leave your enterprise business and go to PLG. That would be dumb. Just build adjacent to your enterprise business, something that would help smooth out the journey for your current customers. And the easiest place to start is like self-service renewals. You already have the customer, you already have the configuration, you already have the contract terms, you already have the pricing. Just put a button in there so they can renew. And that doesn't mean you can't have a conversation with a with someone at renewal time. It just means you don't have to have a conversation at renewal time. You might be able to send 30% or 40% just through the automatic renewal cadence. Oh my goodness, now I've just like smoothed that out. Now what about expansion? Now I maybe can do that.
Yeah.
What about like self-service demos? Ooh, maybe I can do that. So I don't have to do it all at once, and I should do it adjacent to my current business, in my opinion.
That's just genius. I mean, what you're suggesting is don't start from the top, not at the acquisition layer, not at the awareness layer, not at the activation layer, but really start at the bottom, right? Now they are a paid customer, renewals and expansion. You enable, self-service PLG towards that. They should be able to go click a plan and then we should, or put that into a subscription model, should be able to do that by themselves. That's just genius. Anyone, any examples that you can give who's done something like this?
Yeah. I think well, there's a couple of great examples in the book, and since we're talking about the book today, launch day, amazing. The best example in the book is
And by the way, the book is still not here to all the people. It's the 146. Hopefully, we should see it in the next 30 minutes. I'm super eager to read this. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's so good. I talked to a lot of companies. Let me just give you an example. I brought up MongoDB earlier. A guy named Shahir Azam is the chief product officer there. He was tasked early on with taking the only monetization model they had at MongoDB was enterprise selling, basically. So they did have a lot of tailwinds because they were an open source product, right? But none of those open source customers paid any money, and the only chance they had to get any of those open source companies to pay any significant money was to engage with the salesperson. At least that was their opinion. And that was only like government and financial services, like people who had such strict security regulations that they couldn't have open source code inside of their IT infrastructure. Okay, great. So now they'd call them, but it was going terrible. Their enterprise stuff was going great. Their inside sales stuff, terrible, because smaller companies were like, we're fine with open source. We don't care. Like, we don't need to pay you money. It's going terrible. So what they did is they took all of that kind of tailwinds, same thing I just said, build adjacent to what you're already good at. They took all of that tailwinds and they said, let's take our inside salespeople and aim them towards a brand new product, which will be a cloud product. So we're not going to upgrade them from open source. We're literally going to build a from scratch, less feature rich, pure cloud product. And we're going to start getting and we're going to self-service kind of monetize onto that. And then we'll turn our salespeople into basically customer assist people to help them activate on the cloud product. And they were able to, the rest of that story is written, like they were able to turn MongoDB is now known for their PLG motion. So anyway, that's one story. Just figure out what you're good at and then just make it easier for your customers, make it more automated. Anything that's making it easier and more automated is going to be good for your customers and good for you.
Yeah. So MongoDB's story is so blatantly out there that many of the database companies actually followed the same playbook. Since then, Mother Duck, which is a DuckDB cloud version of it, they followed the same playbook.
Yep.
Timescale followed the same playbook. Neon Tech, which I think Salesforce or someone acquired it, followed the same playbook. You go in, click, boom, 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 you play, you connect that with ChatGPT. You write queries, automatically gets pushed out to Neon DB, some things like that. Then you have ClickHouse, a wonderful story. Their downloads were almost 1 billion downloads in last maybe 8 to 10 years time. They put a cloud version of it. And now that's super successful. I think they are still early days, maybe 750 million ARR, but they are growing extremely fast, in that particular space. So I think that's a great playbook. Let me ask, maybe a couple of areas around this. There's pain about freemium. And I think, you've been a great advocate of PLG and freemium. Do you have any stories around that premium has attracted us really bad customers? They have, these are the wrong users. We didn't actually really need them. Is that more prevalent than what I imagine?
No, when you were reading the kind of the battle stories of the respondents to the survey, I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember. I know what I probably would have shut that down too. Like, yeah, of course. Like, you can't waste $500,000 and get nothing back. Like, it's hard. And I don't want to say it's because we did it wrong. I mean, in some cases, maybe that's true. Maybe we didn't iterate enough. Maybe we just needed to stay a little longer. But, but when it's working and when it's not working. And when it's not working, it feels like you're pushing a rock up a hill. I sat down with one of my mentors and while he was still alive, Clayton Christensen, and he could just read on my body language like, Dave. He was like, Dave, like you look like you're struggling. Like, no, everything's great. Like we're up and to the right. Like look at our growth metrics. He's like, no, I'm not buying it. Talk to me. Like it feels like you're working too hard, like you're pushing a rock up a hill. And he finally got me to kind of get out of my sales mode and get into my kind of honest mode. I'm like, dude, it is. I probably didn't say dude to Clay, but I'm like, it is
Yeah.
hard. Like I don't. He's like, it needs to feel like water flowing downhill, and you'll know it. And right now, I don't think it feels like that to you. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it does not. So yeah, you're gonna run. I was with an executive team maybe 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about their experimentation framework, and they were totally fine if 9 out of 10 experiments failed. Totally fine. You define the experiment, you define the objective. I think you said this near the beginning. You either hit the objective or you don't. If you don't, you deprecate it. If you do, you lean into it. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. Great. So then it's all about velocity. You got to
Yeah.
run more and more and more. If you can get 1 out of 10, program it in, 1 out of 10, program that in, 1 out of 10, program that in. Pretty soon you're talking about a flywheel, like a self-perpetuating flywheel, but not everything's going to work. You're going to have stuff that attracts the wrong customers. We were working on a project in Brazil. We killed an entire product line. It was just like, this ain't working. Like, we got to shoot it dead. We got to start over. It happens.
Yeah. I remember I was talking to, I think, the CPU of Windsurf. They are also a vibe coding platform. And I asked him um, questions around how do you know that the lead that comes in, the person who signed up, if you call that as a lead, who comes in, fits your general ICP. And, do you have any stats around that? And they said, let me get back to you. 2 days later, he showed the following things to me.
Uh-oh.
He said 56% of the people who sign up are fake domains. They use temporary inboxes and they build an app, they consume the token, they take the code and they go away, they never come back again. And we can never reach them because these are temporary inboxes. 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, after they have signed up, these mailboxes don't exist. So that's 56% of them, for someone like Windsurf. My goodness. It's not, well, there might be an ICP. The person who's behind it might be an ICP, but they're using the fake email ID.
Yeah.
And then I asked him, okay, that's a lot. 56% is a lot. What else can you tell me? And he said, we are finding 30% of them are using personal email IDs, and we can't really locate them because you can go ahead and create a Gmail ID. The inbox is fine. We can reach the inbox. Emails don't bounce back, just like the temporary inboxes. But these guys are never reachable. They will never respond back to you. So the only ones that we think are the leads are the corporate emails, right? Or an email ID through whom we can do an enrichment. And that's hardly between 20 to 30%.
Wow.
Oh, I said, whoa, that's amazing. And do you have operational framework to solve that? And I said, no, we see something like this, we can't reach. After a month, we clean up all these accounts.
And those kind of conversion, that sounds like a conversion rate from like website visits to activation. It doesn't sound like a conversion rate from actual token consumption to ICP. Like token consumption is expensive. So if I only have like 10% of token consumers, like real token consumers, even eligible to convert, like I'm 90% handicapped from the get-go on monetization.
Yeah. So these days, I think Bolt and Cursor and Lovable, they verify that these are not temporary inboxes. These are not fake domains. But that wasn't the case just 3 or 4 months back. The rate of abuse was through the roof.
Yeah.
I know we will be out of time. So Dave, I have a few more questions to you. I hope you're enjoying this. So this is, I'm enjoying it.
And I love how you came right out of the gates with the negative stuff. It's good. It just says that you got a real audience.
That takes the things up. Let me ask about slightly different, on the themes of regret, if you want to call that as someone has done freemium and they've been regretting about it. I have taken a note about 6 or 7 general themes of regret: attracting the wrong crowd, wrong audience, wrong users. That's top and foremost. And within ThriveStack, we've recently built lead quality as an index to automatically look up abuse and all of that. And we are able to go look at corporate emails, personal emails, abuse, and all of that. Right? That's great. The second one that we have seen is conversion struggles. Premium users don't respond back to your emails. Hey, I want to use your product when I want to, it's like call me maybe. Don't try to unnecessarily call me. I'm not going to respond to you. So the conversion rates for these non-paid free users is very, very low, at least across the 12 people that responded who are regretting it. And it's so damn low, it's about 1%.
Yeah.
And they say that they are still want to use your product. They'll keep coming back to you and use the product, but they will never convert.
1% from an active
engaged
customer to a paying customer.
To a
that's too
paying
low.
customer.
That's too low.
That's too low. And I was like, okay, that's not right. But looks like that's their experience.
Yeah.
The third thing that they see is that because it's free, there's nothing that holds them back, and retention is very low. So after 6 months, and they keep getting the same thing over and over again, they go away, right? Yeah. Or they open up another account and somehow they cross the limits that way. So for example, the first account you had 10 GB free, right? They'll create one more account, which is another 10 GB free. So now they have two accounts, which is 20 GB free. So they would never cross the limits and pay you beyond that 10 GB. Either that's the delayed monetization, or the customer churn, the retention after 6 months is very, very low. Any thoughts on some of these regrets? I mean, the first two we've already talked about, but
yeah, but I think they're related. I love stringing them together. So the first point is I don't have to solve all of that for everybody who jumps in the top of my funnel. I need to solve it for my ICP customers. So if you were to take kind of that problem that you said with who was it? Bolt? Windsurf. Yeah. So take that problem from Windsurf and they get down to, wait, okay, we've got this plus or minus 10% of actual target ICP customers. That's who I want to solve it for. Probably, yeah. And then once I'm in that domain and I've figured out who my target customer is, then in my mind, I have a land and expand kind of customer journey. Like, what does it mean to reach first impact? What does it mean to then go from an individual account to a Teams account? What is the additional functionality? Kind of what does that look like? And then I'm going to experiment my way to make that journey for those humans highly illuminated and highly paved. If someone else over here is cheating, I'll deal with that on like some other basis. But what I'm really trying to do is pave the way for the target ICP to get on their prescribed journey. And that is an exercise. And this is where I see a lot of either impatience or mindset issues start to set in. I got to channel my humanity. I got to figure out who is the human and how does she make progress, speaking of Clay Christensen, on her job to be done. Like, how does she talk about what would make a good day for her, will cause her to succeed at the thing that she's trying to accomplish. And then I just kind of knock those things down in the product. I'm not thinking about guardrails to protect myself. I'm thinking about paving the path to help her succeed, because she's not going to care at all if I ask her to pay at the right moment in her journey. She is going to go try to cheat if she feels like I'm trying to just like box her in, or if she's one of the wrong ICP people who's just trying to get away for free things. I just got to flip my mindset, and then I got to be patient. I got to run experiment after experiment after experiment. I got to measure by cohorts, which is exactly what ThriveStack would help me do, and just keep kind of programming those wins into that path. By the way, if I'm a corporate buyer and I'm getting amazing impact out of Windsurf, I don't care. I can find $12,000 under the couch cushions. I don't care. Like, I don't care at all. Like, that's a non-event.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So we have a question from John Baptiste. He knows you. He's a DevOps leader. I don't know which company it is from the LinkedIn. His question is about revenue cannibalization. How do you convince the sales guys to go against freemium? Looks like he might be undergoing a debate within his company.
It's super hard, and I'm going to give you a broad stroke kind of blanket answer, which is probably not perfectly correct for you, but in my opinion, give your reps every reason to embrace it and give them quota retirement on all expansions in a larger territory. So let's say you've got a number of $1 million, and now I'm a rep. I've got them under, and now I'm fighting against, like, I don't want my accounts to upgrade self-service. I won't get paid on that. I want to talk to them. I've seen this a lot of times, Guru. So they'll go like, put activity on a bunch of accounts so that they can claim it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then if they upgrade, it'll be theirs. No, that's terrible. Make their territory slightly bigger, and then anything that upgrades in that entire territory, give them credit for. So now, just give them credit. Who cares?
Yeah.
So now I got a $1.2 million territory, but I don't care whether you're upgrading self-service, you're upgrading with my help, you're upgrading like in some. I don't care. All goodness is goodness, and now I'm acting on behalf of my company. And when I talked to the folks at HubSpot, they indeed did that for a while, and then they started kind of pulling that stuff back after time and more clearly delineating between a self-service, commissionable activity versus non-commissionable. But in the beginning, I just want to eliminate all of that and just pay for it.
Yeah. So don't go into the cannibalization, expand the world. I think with HubSpot they've also segregated the teams.
Right.
So if that's possible, you can do that. I know we are out of time, but I think maybe I'll summarize this. Dave, I've learned so many things from you. The fact that freemium itself seems very easy, but operationally it's very, very hard. There are a lot of things around how to acquire, how to run awareness campaigns, think about activation, figuring out your low friction monetization, bring the engagement. You keep mentioning about you bring value to the end users. Ultimately, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later, you'll see value being paid back to you. This is amazing conversation, Dave. I really love this conversation. I hope the entire audience did. Have comments and show notes into our podcast channel as well. And for all the listeners, today is the day. August 26th is the day for freemium, and there's that book. My book is to arrive in another half an hour's time. But please go ahead and buy that. It's on Amazon. I think it's a 9% off today, so you should go ahead and buy it. Thank you all.
Thank you, brother.